And good morning, everyone. Meteorologist Steve Caparotta here. Wanted to give you a live update on these unfolding weather threats we have for today. An increased threat for flooding and also an increased threat for at least a few strong to severe storms as we work our way through the day. So we need to stay weather aware. Things are starting to get more active across parts of the area as we speak. So we'll kind of walk you through what's going on right now and what we think will happen over the next couple of days. Start you out with our live first alert radar network. And we've already had some downpours working through the area this morning. Rain intensity picking up a little bit, but it's scattered about Metro Baton Rouge at this hour. You can see some heavier rains right now in the eastern part of Livingston Parish, headed towards I-55 Tangipahoa Parish. We got some downpours in the metro area. Some of the heavier stuff right now near White Castle, moving up to the northeast. And then as we take it a little farther to the northwest, been tracking this band closely from Point Coupee Parish into West Feliciana and Wilkinson County right now, where we do have a flash flood warning in effect. So let's give you a look at that flash flood warning. That is in effect through 10:30 this morning. Probably going to see some additional flash flood warnings issued in our area through the day today as we watch this band of heavy rainfall gradually move off to the east. But right now, we've got it extending from Woodville right on down to St. Francisville at this hour, and then bending back to the southwest towards Krotz Springs. That's kind of the axis of some of the heaviest rains, at least in our local viewing area as it stands right now. Look at the estimated rainfall. Now, much of this has come down over the last 3 to 4 hours. And this stripe from north of Opelousas, near north of Opelousas, up to around Simsport, we're already seeing 4 to 8 inches plus as estimated by Doppler radar. You've got an estimate of nearly 9 inches of rain this morning in northern St. Landry Parish, over 8 inches up here near and east of Simsport as well. So we've already seen what the potential is this morning. I've seen some pictures out of the Opelousas area this morning showing some street flooding ongoing, so that's going to be a concern. So initially what we're talking about today as some of these heavier rains move in is primarily a street flood concern. And then if we do realize some of the higher totals that I'll show you in a moment, some of that potential where we say, you know, we're already seeing some 8 to 9 inch totals. So if we do get some pockets where we end up over the next day or two 10 inches plus, then we'll start talking a little more about rivers as well. But in the short term, it's more of a street type flooding that we're concerned with. But you get an idea where these bands set up, how much rain they might be able to produce. Here's a look at some of the reports already this morning, so you can see some of that flooding reported near Opelousas, some up here in the Boyles Parish, a number of reports of some flooding in southwest Louisiana, including around Lake Charles and back into southeast Texas around Beaumont as well. All right, here's what Futurecast has to say, the HRRR. Now note two things here really. Number one, not doing a great job of capturing some scattered rains we already have around much of our viewing area, and this main band looks to be a little bit west of reality right now. It's a little bit farther east than what the model shows, but it does show that band kind of slowly progressing eastward, and at least for a while kind of setting up across the heart of our viewing area, extending right on through Metro Baton Rouge late this morning and at lunchtime. The key becomes today, we do think these bands at times will be very slow moving, if not stalling at times. Where do they set up? Where do they stall for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and we get in on some of that very heavy rainfall? Nearly impossible to pinpoint the locations that get those heaviest rains. Just understand that potential is very real in today. So notice by 3 o'clock it does nudge it eastward. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. And then it kind of shows that axis becoming oriented more southwest to northeast and kind of bending back to the north. So you get the idea, depending on exactly where this semi-stall happens, we could be in and out of heavy rains for much of the day in some areas. It's not going to be everywhere, but we could have an axis of very, very heavy rainfall coming down through the day. Here we are at 9 o'clock, still seeing some pockets of heavy rain, showing perhaps a new axis of some heavy rains developing out to our west and then moving eastward late tonight into midnight. So hopefully that paints the picture for you. We're just going to have to track where those heaviest bands set up through the day. Now the HRRR, the prior run of it, this runs all the way through Thursday evening. The prior run of this model overnight generated a stripe of 5 to 10 inch plus rains that kind of went right across the heart of Metro Baton Rouge. You'll notice it's backed off of that a bit, but it's still showing some stripes of 4 to 6, 4 to 7 inches plus. So the potential for some very heavy rainfall still there, even if these totals have come down slightly in this run. And I would tell you, I would caution you, try not to lock in any single model run at this point. The graph model is also generating some stripes of 5 to 10 inch rains in our local area. So we do see a pretty good signal that that potential is there. Not everybody's going to get those high-end numbers in that 5 to 10 inch range, but we could certainly have some stripes of it, just like that one I showed you a little bit northwest of us that's already occurred this morning. So that's what we're going to have to keep an eye on. And if we get a 5 to 10 inch stripe in the more urban areas over Baton Rouge per se, then, you know, obviously the flood threat goes up versus if that happens over more rural locations. So that is what we're keeping a close eye on. The Weather Prediction Center, their outlook, which runs through Saturday morning, if you can make out the different shades here, the more magenta color, 5 to 7 inches, and those are meant to represent average totals, so they're hitting the area pretty hard. And then the lighter pinks are pockets of 7 inches plus, according to the Weather Prediction Center outlook. So ultimately the takeaway is they're also suggesting that very real potential that we see some 5 to 10 inch totals in parts of the viewing area over the next couple of days. With that, during the overnight hours in their updated outlook, they did upgrade most of our viewing area to a 3 out of 4 moderate risk of flooding today, tonight, tomorrow morning. If you remember when we were showing you this yesterday, it was a little bit northwest of Baton Rouge. Now it includes pretty much all of our viewing areas. So also you see how that flood threat has gone up. The severe weather threat has increased a little bit as well, according to the Storm Prediction Center. They've upgraded just about all of our viewing area to a 2 out of 5 slight risk of severe weather. Primary concern, any stronger storms, damaging winds, an isolated tornado, not out of the question. So the heavy rain threat is our primary concern today, but isolated strong storms also possible. Live look outside right now. So Sky 9 camera in Port Allen. Lots going on here. We've got some rain in the area. There's some fog in some spots, including here on the Mississippi River. We've dealt with some fog at times overnight. It's just kind of a messy morning right now. Now, at least we're not dealing with major impacts in most of our local area as of yet, but that could change as the day progresses. 70 degrees right now, and look at the winds. South-southeast 13, gusting to 24 at the airport. It's going to be a breezy day and a fairly mild day, but certainly going to be breezy even outside of the rain and storms. Temperatures anywhere from the mid-60s to low 70s right now. Those temperatures won't budge a whole lot through the day. In fact, what you'll note is where some of the heavier rains have been coming down to our west, temperatures have actually dropped down into the low 60s this morning. So I've got rain chances continuing to ramp up through the remainder of the morning. The heavy rain threat increasing late morning, lunchtime, continuing into the afternoon, and then the key just becomes where do those sort of the axis of heaviest rain set up, and that's just going to be kind of tracking it live as it happens. Just understand we all need to stay alert today. We need to pay more attention for the drive home later today, picking up kids from school. It wasn't too bad getting kids to school this morning. It was wet in some areas, but the impacts could grow as the day progresses, so be ready for that. Why are we dealing with this? Well, right now we've got a slow-moving storm system out to our west. The core of it spinning out over New Mexico right now. This persistent southwesterly flow feeding in tropical moisture, periodically disturbances. There's a slow-moving front that's part of the equation here as well. Nothing moving very quickly. So today and into tomorrow, that pattern continues, and that's why the rains really could start to add up quite a bit. I've got everybody in on the rain today. First alert weather days today and tomorrow. What does that mean? First alert weather day, we want you to be extra weather ready. In essence, we're saying the impacts could be significant from weather both today and at least into the first half of tomorrow. Still good rain chances Friday and the Saturday morning, although I think the heavy rain threat will diminish a bit. We're talking more about scattered showers and storms. Shouldn't be as much of the heavy rainfall, but obviously at that point in time, probably some of you not going to want much more rain. So we'll keep an eye on that. I do think most of the rain is out of here by or before lunchtime on Saturday. By Sunday, we're completely dry and turning cooler, a high around 60. And then at least we'll get a chance to dry out, it looks like, for much of next week. Temperature is pretty comfortable, some chilly mornings at times. Afternoon highs look to be pretty comfortable in the 60s. Give me a minute here. I know some of you are watching on Facebook, so I'm going to try to pull up Facebook, and we got time for maybe a few questions. If anybody has those, just pop those in the comments, and I will do my best to see if we can answer a few of those. All right, yeah, let's clear that up. You know, is somebody saying, is this 2016 potential? No, we don't see anything shaping up like 2016 right now. So briefly to address that issue, in the short term, for today, what we're mostly concerned with is watching more so street flooding as we get some of these bands and stripes of heavier rain showing up in the local area. Now, if we do realize some of that higher end potential, I showed you in some of the models where we get up to 10 inches of rain or maybe even more than that, which we can't rule out, then we'll start tracking the rivers a bit more in the days ahead. But in the short term right now, the focus is more so on street type flooding and nuisance flooding. Water rising that way, not so much the rivers. And keep in mind, it's been relatively dry over the last several months, right? The rains have picked up in recent weeks, but most rivers right now aren't running terribly high. So we're not dealing with major river concerns at this moment. We just need to see where those totals end up. So if we get on the higher end of that range, then we'll be paying more attention to that. But that is, that's not our main concern. Rebecca asking if there's a tornado, more of a spin up, not a big tornado. Yeah, we're talking probably the tornado threat is more for a weaker tornado than a strong one. But weaker tornadoes can still be very impactful, so I want to pay attention to that. I see Becky here, and bear with me. I'm looking at my Facebook page. This is also on the WAFB page. I'm trying to pull up that one as well, so I can try to address comments in both places. Becky was asking about Point Coupee Parish. Point Coupee is certainly in on some of the heavier rains right now, so you're already dealing with it. So in the next couple of hours in Point Coupee, stepping on cords here, stay alert because you're in on the heavier rains, and that's what we expect to kind of ease eastward and southeastward over the next several hours into parts of Baton Rouge. All right, let's see if anybody else has any questions. Local flooding today by LSU area. Now, we're not going to get down to neighborhood by neighborhood and something like this because I am not good enough to tell you exactly where the heaviest rains will fall. What I can tell you, since you bring up LSU, is we do know there are traditional flood spots, right? Like Burbank, Nicholson at times can take on water pretty quickly. So anywhere you may be out and about today, that you know is one of those traditional flood spots that tends to take on water rather easily. Be extra aware in spots like that, whether it's Burbank, Nicholson, the Acadian underpass, that railroad underpass on Bluebonnet, any of those spots, you know. I sometimes go down Industrialplex. That spot seems to hold a lot of water. That road seems to hold a lot of water. Places like that that you know get the hold a lot of water, stay extra aware, but I can't really pinpoint one neighborhood over the other as under the greatest threat. As I showed you in that Weather Prediction Center outlook, they've pretty much upgraded all of our viewing area to a 3 out of 4 moderate risk, so that should tell you we all need to be alert today. Johnny chiming in here, watch versus warning. He asked me about this live on air, so thank you for the reminder, Johnny. We are all, pretty much all of us, under a flood watch right now. So a flood watch means be aware for the potential of flooding. It's a heads up that we might get some heavy rain. Once a warning is issued, as we have right now in parts of Point Coupee and West Feliciana parishes up in Wilkinson County, Mississippi, where there's a flash flood warning, that means that flooding is either occurring right now or it is imminent, is the word you'll hear, that we think it might happen pretty soon, okay? So warning is, watch is get ready, and heads up that something might be headed your way. A warning means it's happening now or it's about to happen. All right, Judy's asking how many lines of active weather. Well, if you were with me as I kind of walked through Futurecast, it could be several lines of showers and storms here through the day tonight on into the first part of tomorrow. Plan on a fairly active 24 hours. That doesn't mean it's going to rain continuously over the next 24 hours, but many of us, if not most of us, will get multiple rounds of showers and storms over the next 24 hours. Let's see what else we've got. And a reminder, if you don't have our First Alert weather app, keep that handy. Any new watches, warnings that are issued, you get the alert that way. We'll be pushing information to our app through the morning and through the day as well if anything new or critical comes along. All right, I'm not seeing too much else new come in the comments, so let me wrap up with this. A couple of things. Number one, a reminder, if you haven't seen it before, we've been doing it for quite a while now, but we do now have a live 9 a.m. newscast on WAFB Monday through Friday every morning. So coming up in about 40 minutes, we'll have a live newscast, so be sure to tune in for that. We'll have the storm team and our news team tracking this throughout the day. If any flooding does develop, we'll certainly keep you updated on that. Keep our First Alert weather app handy, and in addition to our 9 a.m. newscast, we'll also be here at noon as things potentially start to get more active late this morning and into the lunch hour. So stay weather aware. Things expected to get more active here through the day. We'll be tracking it and keep you updated as warnings come out and letting you know any critical information that needs to be shared. But right now, we'll wrap it up and hope to see you for 9 News at 9.